My name is Michael Long. I am 57 years old, and until recently, my life was defined by the quiet rhythm of our family farm. If you saw the photos of us walking through the golden fields with my wife Heather in her favorite sun hat, or playing in the grass with our granddaughter Mia and our yellow lab, you would see a man who thought he had all the time in the world. But on July 17th, time stopped. I was up on a ladder leaning against the roof of our green equipment shed, trying to clear some debris from the gutters. I remember the ladder shifting on the gravel, a sudden, sickening lurch of gravity, and then the hard impact against the ground. For 11 minutes, my heart sat silent in my chest. My brain showed no activity. I was gone. There's a question in this account I'd rather not look at, and I'm going to look at it anyway. Michael says his heart was quiet for 11 minutes. 11. I read these accounts because they won't leave me alone. My name's Zeke, and people send them to near-death experiences from every kind of life, and most of the ones that reach me are 30 seconds, a minute, maybe 4. 11 minutes with no brain activity is the number I'd rather step around because I don't know where to put it. The other thing I can't step around is how plain the day was. 57 years old, a ladder leaning against a green equipment shed, gutters that needed clearing, a man in a small town, and his wife Heather in her sun hat somewhere in the photographs. Nothing about that morning was supposed to matter. I'm worn out tonight, and I'm not going to dress any of this up. It's those 11 minutes that kept me in my chair. The transition was not a dark void or a tunnel. It felt like walking out of a heavy fog into the most brilliant morning I have ever known. The pain from the fall, the shattered ribs, and the pressure in my head simply ceased to exist. I found myself standing in an expanse of light that felt like a living embrace. As I looked around, a figure of immense stature and radiance stood before me. His presence was like a pillar of white fire, yet his eyes held a deep, ancient kindness. I knew instinctively I was not looking at a man, but a celestial messenger. He introduced himself as the Angel Gabriel. The moment I heard his voice, which sounded like the resonance of a great bell, a profound sense of honesty and awe washed over me. I felt small, yet completely seen. I stood there trying to steady my thoughts, though my mind felt faster and clearer than it ever had in my life. The air, if you could call it that, felt like it was charged with meaning. It was as if every breath I took was filling me with knowledge I had forgotten long ago. Gabriel looked at me, and I felt he could see every mistake I had ever made, every secret prayer, and every moment I had spent worrying about the farm or the future. He didn't look at me with judgment, but with a clarity that made me want to be better. I realized then that my life wasn't just a series of random events. It was part of a much larger story that I was about to see in its entirety. Michael, Gabriel said, and the sound of my name in his voice made me feel like I was truly home for the first time. The Father has granted you a glimpse behind the curtain. Many walk the earth in a stupor, blinded by the trivialities of the moment. They do not see the foundations shifting beneath their feet. You are here to see what the prophet Daniel saw, so that you may carry the warning back to those who will listen. The thing I noticed there wasn't the angel. It was his name. Michael says hearing it spoken in that voice made him feel he was truly home for the first time. And this is a man with a wife, a granddaughter, a farm he's worked most of his life. He already had a home. He'd have told you so the day before. I don't know what to do with a person saying he only felt at home once somebody said Michael out loud. It's a small thing next to everything else in his account, and it's the one I keep turning back over. As he spoke, the radiant space around us began to ripple. It was like looking at the surface of a pond when a stone is thrown in. The light organized itself into shapes and colors that were far more vivid than anything on Earth. I felt like I was being pulled through time, but I wasn't moving my legs. The sensation was one of pure consciousness. Suddenly, I was looking down at a city I had only read about in the Bible. It was ancient Jerusalem, but it wasn't the ruin people see today. I saw the sun reflecting off stone walls and the bustling of people in the streets, but there was a heaviness in the air, a sense of ruin and exile. Gabriel stood beside me, his golden white light casting no shadow. "Look at the year 457 BC, he said. I didn't need a calendar. The knowledge was simply there in my mind. I saw a man, a king named Artaxerxes, handing a decree to a group of men. This is the moment the clock began, Gabriel explained. The command to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. From this single point in history, the path was set for the redemption of mankind. God does not work in chaos. He works with a precision that would stagger the minds of men if they only dared to look. I watched as the years began to accelerate. It was like watching a film strip run at high speed. I saw the walls of Jerusalem go up in troublesome times. I saw generations live and die, all while a silent countdown was ticking in the heavens. Gabriel moved his hand through the air, and a golden line appeared, connecting that ancient decree to a future moment. 7 weeks were for the rebuilding, he whispered. Then 62 weeks followed, each week representing 7 years of your time, 69 weeks in total, 483 years, leading directly to the one the world was waiting for. The scene changed. The dusty streets of the rebuilding effort were gone, replaced by the banks of a river. I saw a man standing in the water, and I felt a surge of emotion so strong it nearly knocked me over. I knew I was looking at the Messiah. The knowledge hit me like a physical wave. The year is 27 AD, Gabriel said. The exact moment the prophecy predicted. After 69 weeks, the Anointed One appeared. Not a day early, not a day late. The mathematical certainty of God's word is the anchor for everything you are about to see. I watched the life of the Messiah play out in flashes of light, the healings, the teaching, the betrayal. I saw the cross, and for a moment the light in the vision dimmed. I felt a grief so heavy it felt like the weight of the world. He was cut off, Gabriel said, his voice dropping to a low, powerful hum. But not for himself. He took the weight that you felt on that ladder, the weight of all human falling upon his own shoulders, and then the prophetic clock stopped. I was confused. Stopped? I asked. My voice sounded thin compared to his. The final week, the 70th week, was separated, Gabriel explained. The 69th week ended with the Messiah, but the 70th week is reserved for the end of the age. For nearly 2,000 years, there has been a pause. This is what you call the age of the church, a time of grace where the door is open to everyone. But Michael, look at the horizon of your own time. The pause is ending. The clock is about to strike again. The vision of the ancient river faded, and I was back in that shimmering space with Gabriel. He seemed to grow taller, more intense. People think they have forever, he said. They plan for decades as if the world is a static thing. But the 70 weeks are a determined period. The last 7 years are the final act of the drama. They are the threshold of the eternal kingdom. I felt a sense of urgency rising in my chest. I thought about Heather and Mia. I thought about the neighbors back in our small town, how they spent their Sundays talking about the weather and the price of grain, completely unaware that the heavenly clock was about to resume its countdown. Why show me this? I asked, my heart hammering. I'm just a farmer. I don't have a platform. I don't have a way to reach the world. Gabriel's eyes burned like stars. God does not choose the eloquent or the powerful to carry his most vital warnings. He chooses the honest. He chooses the one who has felt the ground rush up to meet him and realized his own frailty. You will go back because you cannot stay. And when you speak, it will be with the weight of someone who has seen the sun behind the sun. He stepped closer, and the light around us shifted from gold to a deep royal purple. Now, he said, you must see the shadow that precedes the light. You must see the one who will try to claim the final week for his own. Many will follow him because they love the comfort of a lie more than the hardship of the truth. Do not look away, Michael. This is the part the world refuses to believe. I want to mark where this account changes because I read past it the first time. Everything up to now has been kindness, the pain stopping, the light, his own name. Then the angel tells him not to look away, and the color goes from gold to purple, and the story quietly stops being about Michael at all. That's not how most of these go. The ones people send me usually stay personal to the last line. A hallway, a mother, a choice. This one hands a farmer a calendar and asks him to carry it. I don't know why some people come back with peace, and this man came back with a job. I felt a cold wind, a sensation I didn't think was possible in this place. The warmth of the light didn't leave, but something else was being introduced into the vision. a darkness that felt ancient and calculated. I saw a vast churning ocean, its waves black as ink, tossing and turning under a sky that held no stars. Daniel saw this sea, Gabriel said, his voice now sounding like thunder, the sea of humanity in its restless fallen state. And from this sea, things are rising that the modern world thinks are only myths, but they are more real than the ground you fell upon. As I watched the black waves, a shape began to break the surface. It was massive, terrifying, and filled with a hunger that made my skin crawl. It wasn't just a monster. It was an idea, a system, a power that wanted to consume everything in its path. I realized then that the final 7 years weren't just a date on a calendar. They were a battleground. I watched the black, churning water, and as Gabriel spoke, a massive creature pulled itself from the depths. It was a lion, but not like any I had seen on a nature program. It had the wings of a great eagle, and as it stood, the wings were plucked away and it was made to stand on 2 feet like a man. This was the beginning, Gabriel said. Babylon, a kingdom of gold and pride. But look at what follows. A second beast emerged, a bear that raised itself up on one side, clutching 3 ribs in its teeth. I could feel the cold, relentless strength of it. Then came a leopard with 4 wings like a bird on its back and 4 heads. It moved with a terrifying speed, a flash of spots and teeth that seemed to conquer the world in a heartbeat. Finally, the water erupted as a 4th beast climbed onto the shore. This one didn't look like any animal God had made. It was terrifying, exceedingly strong, with great iron teeth that crushed everything in its path. It had 10 horns on its head, standing like jagged mountain peaks. The kingdoms of man always end in teeth and iron, Gabriel whispered, and the sound of his voice seemed to steady my heart even as the vision grew more intense. But look at the horns, Michael. This is where your world stands today. I peered closer at the 10 horns. As I watched, another horn, a little one, began to push its way up from among them. It was small at first, almost insignificant, but as it grew, it uprooted 3 of the larger horns. This little horn didn't have the animal-like features of the others. It had eyes like a man, and a mouth that began to speak with a boastfulness that made the very air vibrate with arrogance. This is the one the world is waiting for, Gabriel said. In your time, the world is being divided. Even now, the nations are being grouped into 10 regions, 10 circles of power that think they can govern the heart of man. And from that system, this one will arise. He will not come with a sword at first. He will come with a smile. He will come with solutions for the hunger, the heat, and the debt that keeps your neighbors awake at night. The scene changed again. I was no longer by the sea. I was looking at a city filled with lights, a modern metropolis that felt cold and sterile. I saw people walking the streets, their heads down, looking into glowing devices in their hands. They looked tired and frightened. There was a sense of invisible weight on everyone's shoulders. Someone wrote to me a while back about being shown their own street, not heaven, their street, on an ordinary weekday. And what unsettled them was how tired everybody looked. I set that aside because I couldn't do anything with it. Then Michael describes a cold city, people with their heads down, faces lit by the little glowing things in their hands, an invisible weight on every shoulder. 2 people who have never met, both pulled out of the light and shown human beings looking downward. I'm not claiming that proves a thing. I only mean that I noticed it, and I noticed it again tonight. The world will be in chaos, Gabriel explained. The systems of man will fail one by one. The money will lose its value, the earth will groan, and people will beg for someone to lead them out of the dark. And then he will appear. He will be a master of intrigue, a man of brilliant intellect and magnetic charm. He will speak of unity, of a world without borders, and of a new age of human achievement. He will be the ultimate hero in the eyes of a desperate world. I saw a great stage being built. I saw leaders from every corner of the earth gathered together. In the center stood a man. I couldn't see his face clearly. It seemed to shift, becoming whatever the person looking at him wanted to see. But his voice was like honey poured over a trap. He will confirm a covenant, Gabriel said. A 7-year agreement that promises peace for Israel and the surrounding nations. The world will breathe a sigh of relief. They will say, peace and safety. And they will think they have finally outsmarted the ancient warnings. This is the start of the final week. the 7 years that complete the prophecy. The vision began to move through time again, but slower this time. I saw the first 3.5 years of this treaty. I saw a world that seemed to be thriving on the surface, but underneath, a net was being pulled tight. I saw a system of buying and selling that was no longer about paper or coins, but about permission. People were required to show their loyalty to the system, to the man at the center of it all. Deceit will prosper in his hand, Gabriel said. He will use the very things people desire, security and belonging, to lead them into a cage. He will rewrite the laws. He will change the times. He will mock the name of the Most High while claiming to be the bringer of light. Then the atmosphere of the vision turned blood red. I saw the man from the stage walk into a magnificent temple. The air grew heavy and foul. He stood in the place that was set apart for God alone, and he raised his hands. I felt a shockwave of evil that made me want to scream, but I had no voice. The middle of the week, Gabriel thundered. The 3.5-year mark. The abomination that causes desolation. He will break the covenant. He will declare that there is no God but him, and he will demand the soul of every living person. This is when the Great Tribulation begins. A time of trouble so severe that if the days were not shortened, no flesh would be saved. I saw a vision of the earth in turmoil. I saw those who refused to bow being hunted like animals. I saw families divided and a global manhunt for anyone who held on to the name of the Messiah. It was heartbreaking. I thought of Mia, her little face, and her innocent laughter, and a terror I can't describe took hold of me. Gabriel, I managed to whisper. Is there no hope? Must everyone fall into this trap? The angel turned to me, and for a moment his radiance was so bright it washed out the red shadows of the vision. There is always the ark, Michael. Just as Noah found grace, there are those whose names are written in the Lamb's book from before the world was made. The darkness is coming, yes, but the darkness is only the backdrop for the greatest light. He moved his hand, and the terrifying scenes of the tribulation began to peel away like old wallpaper. Behind them, I saw something else. I saw people in small groups hidden away, their faces glowing with a light that didn't come from the sun. I saw them sharing bread, praying, and looking toward the sky with a joy that the world couldn't understand. Here's where I could use help, honestly. Michael says those faces were glowing with a light that didn't come from the sun. I would like to know what that light does, in plain terms. Does it throw a shadow? Does it warm your skin? Can you look straight into it without turning away? He also says the angel beside him cast no shadow at all. And that's the kind of thing a person notices without meaning to. And those are the details that stay with me longest. If you've stood in light like that, tell me what it did to the room rather than how it felt. Mostly I get feelings back. One plain description would help me think. God does not leave his people without a witness, Gabriel said. Even in the darkest hour, the truth will be spoken. Angels will fly in the midst of heaven with the eternal gospel. Signs and wonders will be given to those who stand firm. The deceiver will have his hour, but is only an hour. His end is already written in the stars you saw before. I saw the little horn again, the boastful man. He was growing more and more frantic, his power reaching its peak. But I could see the cracks in his kingdom. I saw that his iron teeth were starting to crumble. He was trying to hold back the tide of a reality he couldn't control. He thinks he can change the end, Gabriel said, a note of holy irony in his voice. He thinks he can defeat the word that spoke him into existence. But look at the stone again, Michael. Look at where it is going. I looked up, and far above the chaos of the earth, I saw a single point of light. It wasn't a star, and it wasn't an angel. It was something solid, something ancient and unshakable. It was the stone not cut by human hands. It was hovering, waiting for the perfect moment to descend. The world is obsessed with the man of sin, Gabriel told me. They study his moves, they fear his mark, they argue over his identity. But they should be looking at the stone, for when the stone strikes, the image of man's pride will become like the chaff on a summer threshing floor. The wind will carry it away, and no place will be found for it. I felt the vision begin to pull me deeper toward the final confrontation, toward the moment where the counting of the 70 weeks finally hits its mark and the eternal begins. I watched as the point of light above the chaos grew brighter. its descent steady and deliberate. The air in this heavenly place seemed to hum with a frequency of pure justice. Gabriel's presence beside me became even more formidable, his light pulsing in rhythm with the approaching stone. "Look at the feet of the image, Michael," Gabriel commanded. I looked down at the massive statue that represented the history of man's pride. Its head was of gold, its chest of silver, its thighs of bronze, and its legs of iron. But the feet, the part representing the time we are entering now, were a fragile mixture of iron and baked clay. They were trying to bond, trying to create a unified world power, but the materials would not hold together. "The strength of the iron is there," Gabriel explained, "but the clay of human frailty and the division of the nations makes it brittle. This is the world that thinks it can stand against the Creator. This is the system the deceiver thinks he can use to rule forever." Suddenly the stone struck. It didn't just hit the statue, it pulverized it. I felt the vibration of the impact through my entire being. It wasn't a sound of destruction, but a sound of setting things right. The gold, the silver, the bronze, the iron, and the clay all shattered into fragments so small they looked like dust on a summer threshing floor. Then a great wind, the breath of God, blew through the vision, and every trace of those earthly kingdoms was swept away. Not a single shard remained. "The time of man is finished," Gabriel declared. As I watched, the stone began to grow. It didn't just stay a rock. It expanded with a life of its own. It became a mountain and then a range of mountains until it filled the entire horizon. The darkness of the Black Sea was gone. The red shadows of the tribulation were gone. In their place was a world that looked like the farm I loved, but perfected. The colors were deeper. The air was sweeter. And there was a sense of safety so profound that the word fear felt like a foreign language I had forgotten. Gabriel walked with me through this vision of the coming kingdom. "This is the promise of Daniel 2:44, he said. "A kingdom set up by the God of heaven that shall never be destroyed. It will not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. It is a kingdom ruled by the Prince of Peace, where the wolf and the lamb shall feed together." I saw people I recognized. Not their faces, but their spirits. I saw them living in a state of perfect harmony. I saw Mia, or perhaps the spirit of children like her, running through fields of flowers that never wilted. There were no hospitals in this vision. There were no cemeteries. There were no locks on the doors because there was no one who wished to do harm. A few accounts now have arrived in the same odd shape. Not gates and clouds, their own place, made right. One was a mother's kitchen. One was a stretch of road somebody used to drive at dusk. Michael's is his farm, with deeper color and sweeter air, and then he does something the others did too. He tells you what's missing. No hospitals, no cemeteries, no locks on the doors. That last one is where I stall. When a man puts door locks on the list of things he won't be needing, you learn a little about what he's been carrying. Whether that overlap means anything, or whether we each simply picture what we already love, I still can't settle. "In the world you are returning to," Gabriel said, "people spend their lives building monuments to themselves. They accumulate things they cannot keep and worry over powers that are already defeated. But here, the only thing that remains is what was done in love and in truth. Revelation 21 tells you that God will wipe away every tear. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying, for the former things have passed away." He then showed me a vision of the world just before this restoration. It was a sobering sight. I saw people in our modern times going about their business. I saw them at the grocery store, at their jobs, and sitting in their living rooms. Life seemed normal on the surface. They were eating, drinking, marrying, and giving in marriage. "Just like the days of Noah," Gabriel whispered. The sun rose, the birds sang, and people ignored the man building the boat on dry land. They thought he was a fool for worrying about a flood when the sky was clear. They accepted the wickedness around them as routine. They became so comfortable in their rebellion that they lost the ability to see the storm clouds. I saw the door of a great vessel. It wasn't made of wood this time, but of spirit. The same door that shut the world out is the door that shut the family in, Gabriel said. Right now, the door is open. The invitation is for everyone. But Michael, The door will not stay open forever. When the king returns, his arrival will not be a secret. It will be like lightning that flashes from the east to the west. Every eye will see him. Those who have made themselves friends with the world will find that the world has nothing left to give them. He showed me a vision of the meeting in the air. It was a moment of pure, ecstatic gravity. I saw people being pulled upward, leaving behind the weight of their earthly troubles. I saw them being transformed in a heartbeat, their bodies becoming like the light that Gabriel radiated. "This is the hope you must share," he said. "Tell them that the king is not a distant judge, but a father who wants his children home. Tell them that being born again isn't just a phrase, it's a necessity. It is the only way to have the eyes to see the kingdom. Without that transformation, a person is trying to breathe underwater with lungs meant for the air." Gabriel took me back to the edge of the light. The farm, my farm, began to appear in the distance, looking small and fragile. "You have been warned of things not yet seen," he said, echoing the words spoken of Noah. "Move with a holy fear. Prepare your household. The 70 weeks are ending. The stone is in motion." I felt the pull of my physical heart, a heavy, rhythmic thud that started to drown out the celestial hum. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay in that peace forever. But Gabriel's touch on my shoulder was a firm, loving command. "One final thing, Michael. The prince of this world will cause deceit to prosper, and he will destroy many when they feel secure. Not be deceived by the promise of a safe world. Because the true safety is only found in the ark of the Messiah. Watch the signs. Keep your lamp trimmed. The time is at hand." Suddenly, the light began to recede, and the heavy weight of my physical body returned. I woke up on the grass with Heather screaming my name and the paramedics hovering over me. It has been 11 days since that fall. Today is July 28th. The doctors are baffled by my recovery, calling it a miracle of nature, but I know better. I look at my granddaughter Mia and our dog playing in the yard, and I see the world through different eyes. I see the signs Gabriel spoke of in the daily news, the talk of global unity, the shifts in how we live, and the growing tension in the East. I am just a man from a farm, but I can no longer ignore what was shown to me in those 11 minutes of silence. This experience has stripped away the illusion that our current world is the final reality. It has shown me that our lives are a brief preparation for a much larger eternity, and that the events unfolding in our headlines are not random, but the fulfillment of a divine schedule. To understand this means recognizing that we are living in a moment of profound grace, a final opportunity to align ourselves with the kingdom that cannot be shaken. It transforms my everyday perspective from one of mere survival to one of eternal purpose. Every interaction and every choice now carries the weight of this coming glory. We must realize that the normality we cling to is a fragile veneer, and our true security lies not in our possessions or our political systems, but in a relationship with the one who holds the timeline in his hands. The final week is approaching, and the eternal kingdom is the only home that will last. I get asked one question more than any other, and Michael's account walks straight into it. Why would a person be shown something like that and then sent back when there's nothing much they can do about it? People don't ask me that to argue. They ask because something happened to them once and nobody at the table wanted to hear it. The answer he was given was that God doesn't pick the eloquent or the powerful for the important errands. He picks the honest, the one who has felt the ground come up at him and knows how easily he breaks. I can't tell you whether that's so. I'd be glad if it were, and I suspect a good many of you already believe it. The steadiest thing in his whole account isn't the horns or the iron teeth. It's one plain sentence Gabriel gives him. Right now, the door is open. I'd hold on to that one before anything else here. One last detail before I let this rest. Out of 11 minutes, the sea, the stone, the kingdom filling the horizon, the piece I keep coming back to is the ladder shifting on the gravel, the smallest thing in the whole account, and it's the hinge everything else turns on. If something like what Michael described has happened to you, or if something here doesn't line up with your own experience at all, I'd really like to hear it. That's how I find out whether what I'm noticing holds up. And if there's one small thing in your own account that nobody ever thought to ask you about, that's the thing to tell us. So the next person who lives it has somebody who already understands the way a farmer in a small town now watches Mia and that yellow lab in the yard and sees all of it with different eyes.